So let me start by introducing each one of you. I was worried in which order I should be introducing people, and I've decided I will do it in no particular order. Whichever one is in my list, I will introduce in the first order, just in case I'm accused of not being balanced in my approach. So to begin with, Hitesh Oberoi, a lot of you would know. He's the co-promoter, managing director, and CEO of InfoEdge India Limited. He tells me he deals with about a workforce of 4,000 people. And of course, he is involved in the workforce business, which he claims he doesn't look into, lest it throws up some results that he doesn't want to know about. He also did mention to me, for example, that they have women, and here again I'm talking about the gender for the moment. The average is about 40% of your workforce, but in positions they have only 10% women, and in other positions they have 70% women. I think he's a little daunted by the rest of the panelists, because we did have a prep call, and he says, I'm only going to say the proper things. I'm not going to say anything which is going to result in a controversy. But we'll make sure, Hitesh, we get you to talk. Then Sanjay, unfortunately, or rather I should say, fortunately has managed to arrive. We didn't manage to speak much before this. But Sanjay has, he's a serial investor. That's what I would like to say, because in his profile I see that he's invested in about 70 plus startup companies. He's working with 70 plus startup companies. So we will talk to him about what he has found more recently than earlier in terms of what the balanced workforce, and more particularly maybe in terms of founders, what is he seeing? We'll come to that. I'm moving on to Priyanka, who's the founder and CEO of PopExo. Do I say that right? And the interesting thing about what she does is her platform is much bigger than all women's magazines put together. If you count for the much bigger, I said, times 4, she says. So if you look at the readership that she has on her platform versus all the leading women's magazines in India, she's times 4, she says. So she obviously gets a ringside view on perhaps women's issues. She has 140 employees, 78% of which are women. So it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say. And then I have Kanika Tekriwal, who basically is a jet-setting lady. She is the founder-promoter of Jet Set Go, which charters provides private jets. And she's been doing this 4 years. It's been a tough business in the sense it's all very male-dominated and gray-hair-dominated. So she tells me that most people are 45 plus in her organization, and she had her own challenges in trying to get them to understand that, hey, hey, I'm your boss. So we'll hear about that too. Last but not the least, one of our panelists decided to be in the audience. Anisha was supposed to be on the dais, but she decided we were too many, and she decided to be part of you. So she is there, so we will seek some views from her as well. Okay, thank you all of you for joining me here on the stage. My first question, let me ask, is the imperative of the workforce. Why do we believe a balanced workforce is better? Some of the answers I did give away, but I think, Hitesh, if I can start with you, if I could get you to, what have you seen, what is your experience, and why do you feel it's an important imperative that we must take up?
Yeah, see, I haven't read the research on the topic, but I can tell you what we see in our company and what we've seen in some other companies we work closely with. See, organizations tend to be capitalist, and organizations tend to be meritocracies, right? So it doesn't matter what color is the cat as long as it catches a mice. That's how organizations think, right? So now, if to do a particular job, it makes sense to hire a person, you hire that person. Doesn't matter what color, caste, creed, religion, gender that person is. And that's how organizations naturally work, right? What we have seen, of course, is that there are some benefits, in my view. Now, we haven't done any sort of research on this. We haven't looked at data, but of having a diverse workforce. And by diversity, I mean, having young people, having middle-aged people, having men, having women, having people from different sort of educational backgrounds, and so on and so forth. And the benefits that we see are that you get different perspectives, you get different points of view. value is often not created in silos. Values is created when teams work together. Like in a cricket team, I mean, imagine a cricket team with only batsmen. Or imagine a cricket team with only bowlers. Doesn't work, right? So you need to bring different people together. There are some people who may be good at design, for example, because of their educational background. Some people may be good at product. Some people may be good at selling because they're closer to the customers. And they bring different perspectives to the table. And in the end, if you can manage the process, because the process actually is a little more complex if they're not diverse. If they are diverse, then you get better output. So for certain kinds of companies, especially, like, companies that are global, like we have an operation in the Middle East, it's a very different sort of ball game than operating in India.
Tell us about what you saw in Dubai. We were talking about this earlier in the day. I thought it would be interesting.
Yeah, so
I
don't know how many people here have been to Dubai, but I've been going to Dubai for the last 10 years, 15 years now. And it's a very different kind of society. So you have people from maybe 150 different countries working in Dubai.
Yeah.
And you have Indians, Sri Lankans, Filipinos, Americans, Europeans, South Africans, Africans, Arabs, all types of people. And everything actually in Dubai, even today, runs on the basis of where you're from. To the extent that certain jobs, you prefer Indians. Certain jobs, you prefer Americans. For sales jobs, you'll get Lebanese. For accounting jobs, you get Indians. So
these are the stereotypes in some sense.
And not just that. When newspapers report news, they report it like as follows. Indian guy attacks Filipino in the mall. Okay? So they actually prefix your community, your caste, or not your caste there, but your sort of, with everything. And not just that, it's very capitalist. So in the sense that, I'll tell you, we participated in an exhibition once in Dubai. And so you put up a stall, you hire people to man your stall. And the sort of hourly charges you pay depend on whether you're hiring Arab or Europeans or Indians for your stall.
Is it because they stand for a certain kind of skill? Or is it a bias?
That is the belief. That is the belief. So I'll tell you, I managed to, because we are in the jobs business, Naukri.com, we meet lots of customers. So I met a customer once. So he explained the hotel business to me. He said, for a hotel, front end, we hire only Filipinos. Well, I said, why? So he said, the thing is, if you hire Indians, they're shy. They don't interact with customers. If you hire Europeans, customers are intimidated. They don't want to interact with Europeans because they think they're too smart. Filipinos just, they're in the middle there. They're okay.
So,
right. So there are some of these things as well.
Can I take the discussion to you, Priyanka? Priyanka, you have 78% women working for you. What would you attribute that to? I mean, given that one gender is predominant. Of course, in a lot of other businesses, we see more men than we see women, for example. But is it something that is orchestrated? Is it something that gives you a better productivity, shall we say?
Okay, so I run PopExo, and to your point, absolutely you hire the best person for the job. And because we are a female-focused digital media platform, we knew that women know how women think a lot better. And so we started off with having actually 100% female kind of. Till we were 50, we were 100% female, and then we started hiring, then men came in. And best person for the job is the way it goes. If I can find a male writer who can write as well on women's topics as women can, of course, then he gets hired as well. The other bias that we have is that we are a very young, so we're 150 people, average age is like 24 in the company. So for me, trying to diversify my companies, my employee pool would be hiring older people, hiring men. So again, balanced workforce is very, very important, and I'm really appreciating the viewpoints that the new joinees in the company are bringing in, because their experiences are different, and silos don't work out. Like if you only have a bunch of really young people working, you work in a certain way. So a little bit of balance is always important. And beyond that, as an entrepreneur or as someone who's in the business to make money, your only bias should be towards skill, right? So you want the best person for the job, and that's where you go. The other thing is also trying to hire people from diverse backgrounds. So like, I would love to have a psychologist somewhere in PopX, so because he or she would understand the psychology of human and human nature at a scientific level, and then that can help us personalize the experience that we can give to our audience as well. So kind of trying to find different people from very different and unique backgrounds, because the perspective that they bring is so much more interesting.
I'm going to ask you, Kanika, you actually have far more men than you have women, for example, and you did say that they were above a certain age profile. I think a lot of your pilots are 45 plus. Even having said that, you did mention to me that you have a one woman in every cockpit objective. Have you achieved it? And what are the kind of challenges might you have faced? This is the reverse of what Priyanka has been doing, I guess. So, and how has it worked out for you?
So we run a private jet business, and we're obviously catering to about, 0.2% of India's population. When you fly a commercial airline, you don't know who's flying your plane. You hear Captain so-and-so, I'm your first officer speaking, you're going to land at so-and-so time, etc. Vis-a-vis what we do, we service about 300 airstrips in India. Some of them are not very long. Some of them are just airstrips in the middle of a forest, in the middle of a farm. There's a buffalo crossing the airstrip and a plane's going to land. So we have very heavy skilled pilots who we normally, get from the defense forces, very senior army, air force, navy pilots. And we bring them down to CV Street and we tell them, yes, you were boss. You were commanding a fleet of 200 planes and a team of 400 people, but here you're that one-man show who's going to handle this plane. And you've got to report into me. It obviously doesn't fly very well, initially. No, the plane flies very well. It doesn't fly very well with them. So it took us a long time to actually, get people used to the fact that they're not going to be working in a very... in the rigorous environment, rigorous is the wrong word probably, in the very disciplined environment they were used to. This is a new way where you get a call at 2 a.m., there's going to be a flight at 4 a.m., you've got to pack your bag, get to the airport, fly the plane out. You've got to do everything from cleaning the plane to starting the plane to making sure there's no pet on the runway while you're flying it out. In this environment, I wake up one fine day and I say, I'm going to have one woman in every cockpit of Jet Set Go. My whole team laughed at me. I remember my HR guy telling me, ma'am, you've got up from the wrong side of the bed today. Go back home for some time. I said, no, we can make it happen. Let's give it a shot. And we started working towards this objective, I think, a year ago. We've successfully converted about 60% of our planes into, one woman in the cockpit aircraft. But it had a really adverse effect on us initially. Some of my customers actually came to me and said, Kanika, pilot change kar de yaar. I was like, क्यों? He's a very senior pilot. नहीं वो लड़की है ना, वो यार मेरी बेटी जैसी है, वो कैसे उड़ाएगी plane? And I was like, shit, am I going to lose all my business? Am I going to lose all my customers because of a whim I had? But it was a very hard decision to stick to and say, we'll survive this. We did lose a few customers initially. It took a lot of conditioning and telling them that, look, girls in the plane are not dangerous, but in fact more effective. They bring more maturity into the cockpit. They bring life into the plane. They think differently. And I think, barring a couple of customers whose thinking we couldn't change probably, we got back all our customers. And now I burn lesser tires. My maintenance costs have decreased on all my planes that they're more women because they're just more delicate in handling the planes is what I would say. So, but that being said, obviously there's no difference. I mean, it's not like men are better than women or women are better than men in the cockpit, but we've seen a lot of change come about, and I hope we'll be able to have a 100% diverse cockpit fleet soon.
That's brilliant. Sanjay, not to be left behind, when we were discussing this earlier, you have had occasion to interact with, let's say, diverse founders. And to exemplify our discussion, how many or how often have you had interaction with women founders?
I find very solo women founders pitching across, possibly right now around 20% odd in terms of the pitches, what I would see. So approximately I review around 200 pitches a month, and typically you get face to face, you will just end up meeting one or two women entrepreneurs as such.
In a month? One or two in a month only?
Yeah. That's
And
all.
is that improved over the years?
It has improved. I mean, last 6 years I've been investing, so at least now you have a solo woman founder companies, and things are successful. But still, you find it saying that there is a huge gap which needs to be filled up. I mean, people there in the management level as a co-founder, you find quite a lot of woman entrepreneur, but solo founder taking a lead position, taking that CEO role, you find it little challenging. And when you see two sets of different couple founders, or in that, typically you will see across male founder taking that CEO position, because from an investor perspective, when we come in, we ask saying that who is going to finally take
leader.
a call, and then typically female will sidestep, in that sense. I don't know why. What is the reason? It's not from an investor that we push across. So one of my great companies called MacMocha, which is a gaming, it's a couple founder, and female is taking a great lead, and she's driving it very well.
So, have you found any difference between the two genders and as founders? Do you think they are different in any manner? Would you notice, for example, that, I mean, of course you would notice if it's a man or a woman, but in terms of, what they are as entrepreneurs, do you see any difference between them just because of their
only
gender?
part where couple of times I feel a little challenging with engaging with woman founder is in terms of negotiation, right? There's a deal on the table, and they would typically end up getting across their husbands or somebody male from their family to negotiate rather than just dealing one-on-one, right?
There was a lot of reaction to what you said on that, Sanjay. They said, no, that's not true. And I mean, Priyanka said, and I said, what do you mean that women bring along their
So I'm
family
not
members?
painting everybody with that,
Yeah.
but I mean, you see those instances constantly happening, right?
Sanjay, I've been a negotiator for like 25 years, so I think you suggest they ask me for help rather than... I suggest you ask them to ask me for help rather than somebody who doesn't know so much about it. You want to add to that, Priyanka?
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be interesting to know, like, out of, say, you've said, see, 20 women a year, out of them, how many actually got their husband or father to negotiate for them?
I would say at least half.
Wow, okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's it's alien, actually. And fine, they bring the father to negotiate with you when tomorrow they're trying to cut a big deal with the client. It's kind of a waterfall effect on that as well. But, no, I mean...
So even if they don't bring across on the negotiation, they will say, my family is telling this, I shouldn't dilute X because my family or somebody has given them within. So it brings a character which typically a male founder would not bring across.
So I actually have a funny story
I
to
want
tell.
to I tell you
go
what.
on.
See, we also sort of invest in a lot of companies. See, it's not about family. It's just, I think that, often the women today, or many women don't have a very vast social network. So even male founders, they basically lean on their social network for advice.
That's right.
They say, listen, because not everybody is sort of clued in. So there are people we invest behind who sort of consult their fathers, they consult friends, they consult other people they know.
Sure.
It's just that often women don't have a very vast social network, so they end up leaning on their family members more than male founders. That's my sense.
Hitesh, I'd actually agree with that all entrepreneurs do have their own mentors, for example. And the women mentors are not that large an ecosystem as of this point of time. So again, why should the gender matter? So long as you're getting the best advice and you're getting the best assistance. But just for amusement, once when I was negotiating a fee with a client, I decided to go all by myself because my client wouldn't look me in the eye. So I said, if he's going to look at the wall behind me and negotiate with me, I think I got away with at least 20% higher fee. So I'm happy to do the negotiation on my own if it helps me to get a better rate, for example.
It's just typically you would like to see that confidence in the entrepreneur before you invest.
Oh, surely.
Rather than somebody taking that stand saying that XYZ is influencing the decision, rather than because you are betting on the founder. So that actually. So idea is why I'm sharing this example is for women entrepreneurs
to be
more aggressive and take a position, right? And end of the day, as an investor, not that our math is always perfect in terms of building the cap table, investing the round or working. It's just mutually we work across as what we would work with a male co-founder.
So the message that Sanjay is giving, that get all the advice you want, but don't bring all the male gender advisors in front. Let them be behind the curtain, get all the advice, make sure you get the best advice from whoever is in a position to help you, and put yourself in front if you're a woman founder. And if you're a male founder, bring a woman and put her in front, because Sanjay thinks that's more diverse, that's more balanced, isn't it?
Why not?
Yeah,
Why not?
surely. Okay. Some of the data and information I was looking at, some of the empirical analysis, I thought I'm going to share that with you. The imperative on the work, on a balanced workforce comes from the fact that you have then a far wider skill set to select from. So being driven by, the capitalist mode, if one can say so, one has access to far more talent, larger talent pool, a more diverse talent pool. It's known to be a far more innovative environment if you have people from diverse backgrounds, different backgrounds come in and, solve problems together, for example. And the other thing is the kind of talent that you attract, whether you are male or female, black or white, come from the south or the north, are 22 or 55, if it says about your organization that you are more diverse, you encourage diversity, you like people from different backgrounds, there will be more applications and there will be more people with high skill set who will apply to you. That's actually been demonstrated. Besides the fact that I was reading that organizations which have, for example, women again, that I think is the most talked about, on their boards or in senior positions, then they actually have higher profitability levels. Their market caps are higher. They've done empirical studies. I don't know what goes into it, but it seems at least it's pointing in that direction. Anisha, would you like to add something from back there, please?
Anisha, just come and sit here, Yakubon. Can we get her a chair, please? Anisha, come.
Okay, but listen, I'm very curious to know, okay? The point that we're all here is to understand how we're going to get to this balanced workforce. And India right now is really at the bottom. I want to know the panel's views on government policies around the maternity leave that started, which is the 6 months. Do you actually think it hampers it or benefits us to get to a more balanced level? Because personally, my views on it are, it hampers it. 6 months, and I am a woman entrepreneur, I will tell you this, I think is really brutal. It's not helping this in terms of, I actually think it's going to make people rethink before they hire a woman. But I'd love to get the panel's views on this new maternity policy and whether that was a good move and how so, and what do you guys think?
Look, it's definitely when it came out, I imagine my situation, right? 78% female, they all are young, they'll all get married, and they all will actually do it at the same time as well. So the kind of impact that's going to have on a company like me, actually at every level, is going to be pretty phenomenal. So I think that if it becomes something that women actually, it starts getting enforced within companies, it's actually frankly going to create havoc. It's 6 months. If you can start making those calculations, I think a lot of companies that aren't as gender positive, they would be the bias will begin to creep in. It's draconian, and I'm not convinced that that's the best way forward. So it's like saying that we have to make special provisions in a way. While some are required, this might have gone a step too far. That's my view.
If I can just add to it. Is it working? Can you?
Yeah.
So, I've been in situations where I've had plane owners come to me and say, Kanika, you've got this whole one woman in the cockpit thing going on. But with what the government's doing, am I safe? Am I going to have a plane without a pilot for 6 months? And we've seen plane owners scrounge at the idea of hiring a married woman. I've seen people now ask in interviews that, are you married? Are you planning to have children anytime soon? These are questions that didn't come along before. In reality, I think more than hamper, it's just going to prevent even people, all of us, as we may just fake it over here and say, oh, we want to hire a woman, blah, blah, blah. But can I afford to pay someone for 6 months when she's not working with me? The stark reality is no. And at the same time, I think the government's making it rather difficult to, enable a conducive working environment for women more than anything else, because people are scared to talk to women now. I've had a government officer who I met yesterday tell me that I had a new secretary who was a woman from an SC/ST category who said, "Sir, I'm going to come to office at 12:30. I'm going to leave at 5 o'clock. This is how I worked with the previous secretary also. And I'm an SC/ST and I'm a woman. If you do anything, I'm going to go and say that you misbehave with me." So where's the security in this?
I'm going to actually, I'm thinking, Anisha.
But, Kalpana, I want to sort of just, so I'll tell you, see, diversity is not easy to manage, right? So there are benefits of diversity which accrue to you if you manage it well. And diversity will lead to complications. So for example, we were discussing it, we have 40% women at the entry level, we have 50% women, but by the time we get to the top, we are down to 15%, right? So there are women who drop off along the way. Now, we had a function recently in our company, we sort of value people who spend a lot of time, and there were some women who spoke this time, and they said, listen, the thing we love about this company is that we're not treated differently, right? So we made it, we can claim it that we made it on our sort of this thing. But the truth also is that there are women dropping off, right? Now, if you want to sort of promote diversity, at some point in time, you will take a call that, listen, you will try and do the analysis, you'll say, figure, why are women dropping off? You may reach a conclusion. I've not looked at the data that women drop off the workforce when they get married or when they have children because, and so on and so forth. Now, if you then say, listen, we'll allow them 6 months of maternity leave because we think in the end, because of that, they will come back and work. And we believe that women employees are more productive, they sort of bring a lot of diversity, they bring different perspectives, they are more loyal, they are more committed. You may be okay with it.
So that's what I wanted to say actually. So I'm sure when the legislation came in to say that an 8 to 10 hour work day is required, as compared to the time where there was no legislation, all of us who were employers must have felt, oh my God, that's going to drop my productivity. That's going to, limit what I'm able to do. I'd rather work my labor 14 hours a day or 15 hours a day. So to some extent, I think I know it's going back on the capitalist view, but to some extent there is a social responsibility, there is a human race responsibility, which is what is perhaps being sought to serve in the 6 months. Whether it should be 6 months or 5 months or 3 is a moot point. But the fact of the matter is that we do all exist within structures and regulations, and this is a changing regulations, which is why we are responding to it. But I actually recall some years ago, I was in Mongolia. There, they offer a 1 year paid maternity leave and 2 years thereafter where your job is preserved, but you don't get paid. Of course, that must be more in the government sector. But then again, why should the government have a larger social objective than any other sector which works in the economy?
Kalpana, I'm curious, what are the gender hiring rates in Mongolia after that? Because I actually think, and this is,
all the women...
My goal is balanced workforce. How do we get to that?
Anisha, all the women work in Mongolia.
That's pretty
But
cool.
the women work because they have this opportunity. Because they know that for child-rearing years, they will not be penalized. That is why the women all come back. So the rate of returning to work after this 3-year period is almost 100% among women.
See,
but the question with that is, of course, it's fantastic for women, and I'm all for it from that. As an employer, we will be fine because we will continue to hire because my best pool is primarily women. But then for industries where an optionality is there, you have a male and a female candidate, and then if the math starts being done and some HR person decides that it's better to go for the male candidate because of this policy, then you're actually hampering a woman's chance of getting a job because of this.
Exactly. That is my only thing.
Again, I would highlight, I talked about the working hours, child labor. There are industries which think child labor is very productive, right?
Yeah, diversity is not easy.
Yeah.
Diversity, because, if you have a diverse workforce, you will get pulled in different directions. For example, tomorrow if you say, listen, we'll give women some extra time off or we'll allow them to work for home, but you say, listen, we'll not allow the men to do this, right? You create a problem inside the organization which you have to manage. But then, people do the math. And smart people do the math and they figure out that maybe despite, after all this, also women are more productive. That's how it works.
Honestly, like last time speaking on this, is that if at the end of this, all of us can moan and complain about the fact that, oh my God, 6 months, we'll figure our ways out because of course we need them to be in the workforce as well, that's fine. But at the end of this, it starts having a negative impact on the hiring levels of women, that I think then would be entirely counterproductive to the entire mission of kind of getting more women to work.
So I think on this rather provocative note, I'm going to open this out to the rest of the audience, please. Anybody has any comments, any questions, any thoughts? Okay. Yeah, could you?
Sorry, I found this debate very fascinating, so I just want to make an observation. As Deloitte, I'm going to claim credit for that 6 months maternity leave. No, seriously. Because we put this into place first, and then we found a trend where other corporates were beginning to take it up, and eventually it found its way into legislation. We did this because we wanted to do that to retain women in our workforce. We were finding that same problem, Hitesh, you were talking about the 15% taper, and we found that it works. It hasn't deterred us from hiring more women. In fact, we wanted to do this to hire more women. And it's worked. It is going to be painful. It is going to have a challenge. But you've got to make a start somewhere. So don't discourage the government from doing this, because that's one of the ways to do these things is to force it. Yeah. No, daycare is an option. We've tried it. It hasn't worked very well. This is probably better. In any case, and Kalpana will tell you this, that we hired women, allowed them to go for 3 months, and then allowed them further 3 months. And it's worked. So don't deter it, don't discourage it. It will be painful. It will have some learnings that we will have. It's like GST. As the implementation happens, we're going to learn from it. So let it happen. There will be mistakes. We'll fix it. People will fix it.
My only issue is what Priyanka said as well. When a man and a woman are sitting right now, I just want more women out there in the workforce. And I know somebody will not pick her because she's, I mean, I've already got my kids in.
Some places accidents will happen. I mean, bad luck for the employer. Because they're losing out to what Hitesh said is the productivity gain. They're losing out over there. So then they've not figured out their math. But you will get a positive impact.
Yeah, but worse luck for the woman, no?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Please don't take this at a micro level. Look at it as a macro trend. It is a way to solve this problem.
Okay. The jury will be out on this,
Correct.
so yeah.
That's right.
Anybody else? Any comments? Yes, there's the...
But personally, I feel the implication will be very different in a startup world versus a established corporate, where your top line, your money is there to actually support you for 6 months. When a startup is struggling, even at a seed level or a Series A level, probably there will be some constraints which will come even from the investor side. So I think it will be very complicated, or maybe if the legislation is working like this, it needs to be different for companies which are at the seed level or the Series A level, rather than for the big corporates like Deloitte or KPMG. They can deal with that. But I think definitely it will have a very negative implication, and I personally am saying from this point, because I am also a very strong feminist. I started some feminist movements in my past, worked on some work balance related issues. I think this definitely will damage, because right now also, if you see in the startup world, if you see in the tech industry, women still don't want to go because it's a very risky proposition, and now even will distract more women not to go there. So, yeah.
I think time will tell. See, I'll tell you, when we were a startup 15 years ago, some of our best salespeople were women. And if those best salespeople had come to me and said, listen, we want to take 6 months off because of maternity, not 3 months, I would have loved to I would have said, no problem, take 9 months off. Yeah, please come back. Because you're so good at your job. So if somebody is not so good at his job, that's very different, right? But if people are sort of...
No, but the question is getting them in. Like the whole point here is once you're in, of course you do everything.
No,
but
the
once...
move world so fast. You know, it moves so fast. You can't. 6 months. You've moved. You'll see there'll be a decline in women in AI, all the new innovative technologies. You will not see them. It moves so fast. No startup. He's right. There will be no startups hiring women that are gone for 6 months or 9 months. You know.
So if a woman founder, where you invested, 6 months she's off, possibly I will write off the money. That's all, simple.
My God, that's rather telling, I must say.
Yeah, because founders are 24/7. Their focus is to build the company.
But would you not do that for the 3-month maternity too?
No. So idea is I'm just making a statement because this is too large of a period to be away from business. Depending at what stage the company is, whether they can afford, it's a different story. But idea is 6 months, a founder, who has built the company from scratch, is at seed level, possibly they are 8-10 people, and the founder itself is not available.
But Sanjay, on a single founder, that's a risk. The force majeure risk runs in any case, right?
Yeah,
So pregnancy is one risk that you have additional with a woman
so
founder,
I'm
but
just
the
saying
chance of being run over by a car.
Yeah, but honestly,
I'm not telling that I will not invest. What I'm trying to, I'll just
if
write.
it happens,
no,
you're
no, no.
right.
I mean,
If
honestly,
Things
like,
are not going to move. The company is just
Sanjay,
going to.
frankly, I mean, if you're talking at the top level, at the founder level, even if she's pregnant, having a baby, most founders I know have the baby and they're at work the next day.
Absolutely.
The likelihood of her taking up this option is very minor. So I don't think
Right.
that actually plays in
Yeah.
at all.
I
I
agree
think
with
the
you.
moot point that Sanjay made is that in case it happens, he will write the investment off. But he, fortunately, and I'm not even going to query that. I'm not going to ask him in case he says something I don't want to hear. He said that he's not keeping that in his mind when he's making the investment.
Absolutely not.
So if-
I mean, that's not, because most of the
Yeah,
founders, as Priyanka said, will take up the responsibility so seriously that they're there next day, right? If government is going to force them saying that, don't work, I don't know how that will play out, but in the startup world, they would be taking that. I mean, I've seen across multiple instances, even with the male founders, as you said, across those situations occur, but they are there trying to solve it and make it happen.
And also, I think in the case, there is probably some degree of difference between a founder and an employee. I think there's a difference over there. A founder will somehow figure it in any case. Their passion drives them.
Right.
So even if they were to find themselves in that situation, I'm sure they're not going to
Absolutely.
drop everything and not
Absolutely.
do what they do.
I mean, the one other thing that I'd like to kind of just slightly change the tone on this is how often we take an example for the norm. So, which basically means that if something happens to me once, am I going to kind of continue to say it always happens to me? That's actually not the case. So, I've been doing this for 4 years. In my fundraising journey, I pretty much met everyone across the board. And one of the things, of course, that there aren't enough women in venture. That's a whole other problem that we have. But beyond that, in all this time, when I met all these people, all these men, and all these different in settings, I think maybe once they've come up to me and said, "Hey, why doesn't your husband invest in you?" So, right? So in all these years, and I could have just gone and said, "Oh my God," but that is not the norm. That is just one example of one person who was slightly backward in his thinking. But I mean, I've had a very fantastic and a positive experience. I mean, I assume that investors look to merit. They look at a business plan. They're gender blind when they're doing that. Absolutely. They look at the person and see, will he or she be the best person to lead this enterprise? And that's who they invest in. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just to say that women are having a fantastic time in the startup world right now. I mean, we are being celebrated like no one others. You're being given opportunities that you put a male founder with the same level of capital and the same level of growth next to me, I would have way more opportunity than he will to kind of come forward.
On that, Priyanka, I have to tell you one occasion where I was representing a client of mine and making a pitch for how much money needed to be invested. And the counterparty, the investor told me that, "Madam, if you believe in it so much yourself, aap kyun nahi khud invest kar leti?" So I guess that's, that had nothing to do with my gender. It was just because I was a consultant. It was my profession, I guess, So you will get these one-off situations in any case.
And that's fine.
Sorry. No. So you have to take a long-term view on people, right? We've had people who've been with us for 10 years, 15 years, and whether men or women, they have their off periods, right?
Sure.
So sometimes somebody may go through a lean patch because he's having a divorce, right? So the guy may not be productive for 9 months. That happens, right? There are times when people sort of need to tender to their parents because parents are old. They sort of have a problem. They may be in a different city. You're off and on. So you give them that leeway, right? Because you take a long-term view on people. I think we have to look at this with the same lens.
Sorry, can somebody...
Even if you look at the age group in terms of a startup, I don't think this question really matters. Let alone the question of pregnancy, even marriage. Now these are being postponed to ages of, say, 30 and beyond. So startups typically would have people in the age group of 22 to... even that could be a factor,
With
perhaps.
with all due respect, I think, that's another misconception everyone lives in, that people who work in startups are normally young. I don't think that's the case as such. Usually, but for example, the company I run, 65% of my workforce, their age is above 40. I have a friend who runs.
Sorry, somebody mentioned AI and things
Yeah,
like
so
that.
I'm coming to that
Typical
for you.
you would have
I'm
people
coming
in
to
that
that
age
for
group.
you. I have a friend who runs India's largest cybersecurity company. He employs over 400 people. 35% of his team is about the age of 50, and 40% of his team is about the age of 45. So, things that as startups grow and blossom into more mature businesses, we need, I wouldn't say, we need young blood, and we need people who have experience, who come from the likes of Deloitte, BCG, etc., to probably correct the founders, bring more maturity into the system, etc. So I don't think, age can really be taken as a deciding factor. But to add to what, everyone's been saying here, I think rather than making it mandatory, give them an option. If your employee is not having trouble, and if she really loves her job and she really wants to come back, she'll have that baby and she'll come back tomorrow to you. I've had a team member whose father died today morning, and he called me up and said, "Ma'am, I'm going to the funeral and I'm coming to work because today's flight I want to do. It's that important to me."
It's certainly not a problem for Pop Exo. Their average is 24.
No, but honestly, but when it's going to hit me at the same time, right? I might wait for 3-4 years from now. It's going to hit me at the same time. And that is, we actually have contingency planning in place. How do you it's a financial kind of a risk that you have that's going to come.
That also tells you that you need to have a more diverse workforce.
Oh yeah, I'm working on
that's the
it.
pointer. In fact, that's the absolute case in point for a more diverse workforce.
Absolutely.
That it should not hit you all in one go, and you probably have different age groups and different diverse backgrounds, maybe more men, for example.
No, honestly, I'm really enjoying where we are right now, because suddenly you have men in the room, and the way that you're talking, discussing, the atmosphere, everything it's changing in a very positive way. Diversity is fantastic. I have the opposite end problem of everyone else around me. I had this discussion with my investor that I have these certain problems happening, and HR is dealing with it, and he's like, "Priyanka, it's unique because you have your makeup of your company the way that it is." But diversity is phenomenal. Without that, you really can't survive or even grow. A lot of the people that we're hiring are older, and we need that to be the case. We need experience in the company.
Just to, close it for you. I don't think I want to be forced to give someone 6 months off. If he said that if it's a long-term view, if I know the employee is going to stay with me for 8-9 years, she's very productive to the company, I would want to be given that option to give her 9 months off, 1 year off, 1.5 years off. But if you're going to put a gun on my head and tell me, you have to pay her for 6 months, sorry, maybe somewhere I'm going to get biased.
And also, you let the market decide. If I want to retain my best sales, my salesperson is phenomenal. I would not let her go for anything in the world. She can take how much of her time off, and when she comes back, I'll be there, right? But let the market decide. It's a business decision for me that I want to retain this person. But if you're going to put a gun to my head and say it's there, then I don't know how we survive.
Priyanka? My panel, yes, our time's up. So I'd like to leave this on the note that there are some guns which we'll have to live with. I guess we won't have any choices. There are many guns. This is perhaps one more which is going to be put to our head. But that doesn't mean the opportunity diminishes. That doesn't mean the possibility of having more people, better responses, more innovation. All of that is a possibility. So without going back to any one of you guys, I continue to route for a balanced workforce in every manner, and believe that it is the way forward. We don't have any choices, and the gun is also not a choice. But thank you so much, each one of you, for being on the panel. Anisha, thank you for your, you were a distant panelist, as they said, but thank you very much, and I look forward to enjoying the rest of our conference. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for the wonderful panelists? Can we hear it for one last time for the wonderful panelists?